So at Live Union, we create business and internal events for clients like EDF Energy, TripAdvisor, AXA, and Kennedy Space Center in the US. And like everybody in this room, we're working in a period of phenomenal technological change within events as live and digital channels merge and become one. So today, things like this are possible. Tupac performing at Coachella from beyond the grave. Tupac performing as a hologram. And with this sort of warp speed innovation in events are coming a whole lot of decisions to make, a whole lot more decisions to make. Decisions about where to allocate resources, where to spend money, where to spend time. So what I hoped might be useful today would be to spend some time kind of showing a framework that you can use to choose the right technologies based on audience value. So it's going to be a presentation in 3 parts. I'm going to start by asking a question about the future of events. I'm then going to look at the delegate value proposition, something that we use at Live Union, and then show how you can use that to innovate, to add delegate value in particular areas. There's a guy at Intel in the States called Joe English. And Joe heads up all of Intel's huge kind of developer conferences and exhibitions. And he asked the futurologists at Intel a very simple question. Will there be events in the future? And the good news for Joe's career was that they said, yes, there will be events in the future. But they based this on 4 areas. They said there are 4 areas, 4 fundamental value areas to events that will only get stronger in the future. And the first of those 4 areas was the power of events to connect people in a very human way, in ways that pure digital channels will never be able to achieve. When you go to an event, you shake hands with somebody, you look them in the eye, and these are all things, all kind of relationship-building activities that have incredible value to business. The second thing that they talked about is a little bit more obscure. It's serendipity. And I think probably all of us have been to an event at some point where you go expecting to see something, but then you randomly bump into somebody or you stumble across a product on an exhibition stand, and those are the things that end up being of most value to you. And the point that they're making there is, we don't always know what we're looking for, and that events have a value in bringing people together for unpredictable things to happen. And I'll come back to this area of unpredictability a little bit later. They also talked about a kind of shift that's happening in events, and we've all seen this, the shift from kind of events being about information exchange to being much more about sharing big ideas. And finally, they said that as social networks grow and become ever bigger, events are going to have a role in social exchange. So this idea that people go to an event to find content that they can then share with their networks. So this kind of sense of attendees becoming advocates. And they kind of alluded to the really interesting point that they can imagine in the future when they invite people to their events, it'll be kind of as much based on people's propensity to share and the value of people's networks as it will on anything else. So I think these 4 areas give us a really good kind of basis, a really good start point to spend a bit of time looking at the delegate value in a little bit more detail. And at Live Union, we call this the delegate value proposition. It's an audience-led approach, and it's based on the belief that there are 6 fundamental value areas to people attending an event. And what I wanted to do is quite quickly to go through these 6, and then at the end I was going to ask a question. Ask you, what was the main value driver in you booking to come to LiveTech? So as I go through these, perhaps kind of bear that question in mind. So we think that the first reason people go to events is to concentrate. We all know that the workplace is becoming ever more distracting. People are ever more stretched. Actually, people use events as a tool, as something so they can sort of block time out in their diaries and can go and can focus on things that are of real long-term value to their business. The second thing that people are increasingly valuing is context. People want events that respond to their needs. They don't want a one-size-fits-all experience. They want to be able to tailor how they spend their time at the event, what they see at the event. I think this is an area that's really increasing. Contribute. I think in the past, maybe people were happy to go to events and kind of sit and quietly listen. Today, people expect to have a voice. Today, people want to have a voice. They want to be able to set the agenda. They want to be able to have some control over the content. In terms of collaboration, and this is an area that we see, particularly with internal events, becoming more and more valuable. People don't want to just go to an event to hear big ideas, to hear inspiration. They want to be able to do something with that. They want to be able to spend time with other delegates, perhaps trying to solve a problem. And there's a book that kind of supports this. Great book called Where Good Ideas Come From by Stephen Johnson. And in it, he makes the point that sort of big breakthroughs, big innovations, very rarely come by a single person in isolation. You get kind of new value, you get new content when one person with an idea, a kind of a hunch, if you like, shares that with another person who has the other half of that hunch, and together those things come together and create new value. Whenever you research events, whenever you ask people why they attend events, time and time again, the opportunity to network, the opportunity to connect with other people is right up there. And finally, going back a little bit to what the guys at Intel were talking about, is there's a real value in people going to events to get content that they can then share, whether that's sharing internally with their own teams or whether that's sharing with their wider social networks. So there we go, 6 areas. And so if we can just ask the question. Now, I know this isn't a zero-sum game. I know it'll be, a combination of those things that sort of drove you to come to LiveTech. But if you can vote for the 2 that were at the forefront of your mind when you made the booking. Okay, that's interesting. I expected concentrate to be number 1. I always think that kind of concentrate's a sort of hygiene factor in why people attend events. Context, connect, yeah, networking, so yeah, you'd expect that to be up there as well. Okay, so I've got a second question. So LiveTech, fantastic event, really good to see sort of technology being integrated into the event. But when the guys come to start planning LiveTech 2014, which of these areas, delegate areas of value, would you like to see them bolster? Which areas would you like them to sort of invest in a bit more? So just choose one this time. Okay, interesting. Well, there you go. That's a bit of free consultancy for LiveTech. So how do we use these 6 areas? Well, what we think is that these 6 areas provide a great framework for businesses to start to evaluate their events, for businesses to start to see which areas of the event the audience are most valuing. And once you've been through that process with your audience, what you can then do is you can obviously make choices about how you're going to use technology, how best you can innovate to increase delegate value at your events. So what I've done is I've picked out 4 of these, And I was going to go through these and sort of show some of the technologies that might help you up value in these different areas. So the first one is, what happens if you research your events, you ask your delegates questions, and they come back and they say, you know what, we want to have more of a voice in the event. We want this to be more our event than your event. Well, you might start by considering something akin to Panel Picker, which is used at South by Southwest in the United States. Panel Picker basically does two things. First of all, it allows would-be delegates, would-be attendees, would-be speakers to put up panels and presentations that they'd like to give at the event. So in 2012, there were 4,500 different speaker and panel proposals that were put up on the site. The second thing that it allows you to do is it allows people to go onto the site, browse the potential topics, but also to vote on them and to comment on them. So what you can see there is a really nice example of handing the content over to the delegates. The second thing that you might do to increase the amount of audience contribution, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about apps today, but event apps are a very simple, great way of increasing contribution. So people can vote, you can run polls, you can do your questions through the app, and you can even have kind of in-app chat rooms and stuff like that. So loads of great stuff that you can do with apps to up the amount of contribution. To take another area, what happens if, having used the delegate value proposition, you decide, you know what we need to focus on is we need people to be able to better network, better connect at the event. Well, we talked earlier a little bit about serendipity. And whilst there's something kind of exciting about serendipity and not knowing who you're going to bump into, and serendipity will always be there, there's also, in this day and age, the opportunity to have self-categorization. So what you can do is, before the event, you can ask people to tell you the topics, the areas that they're interested in discussing with other people. So the areas that people want to meet around. And there's a whole host of different networking apps out there that take this self-categorization to help you meet with the right people. And some of them use kind of proximity awareness, like Bluetooth and geolocation. And others gamify it. So there's one out there called People Hunt that makes the whole kind of networking process into a bit of a game. You might also consider smart badges. So a very simple thing that people can do with badges is that you can put a QR code on the badge so that when you meet somebody, you can use your app to scan the QR code, and then you're making a digital connection as well as a physical connection. And that can have things like automatic connections through to somebody's LinkedIn profile. So what you can see there's loads of different things that you can use to help people better network at events. Choosing the one that's right for you will depend on your audience. It'll depend on the event type. But I think what you would say is that particularly for English audiences, anything that can kind of oil the networking process is going to be welcome. What happens if delegates want to go further than just connecting? They actually say to you, you know what, we want the opportunity at this event to work with different people, to spend time collaborating. At Live Union, we're big fans of something that we call hub sessions. And hub sessions tend to look a little bit like this. They're kind of distributed spaces where people can get together in different sized groups to work on topics, to kind of discuss particular areas, to kind of solve problems, if you like. Now, these look quite pretty in visuals, but I'm sure there are people sitting in the audience who are saying, yeah, run that, you'll have complete chaos. And that's actually true, unless that is, you integrate a digital hub with the physical hub. And a digital hub, again, can be app-based. It can be something that's run on smart devices. And what that allows people to do is to put forward topics that they'd like to collaborate with others on. It allows them to join collaboration groups. It allows them to feed things back into the event. And from an event organizer perspective, what that's giving you is the information. because as people book to do things, that it updates their personalized agenda, and it allows you to respond in a much more fluid way, changing the event space to meet their needs. And I think this is a great example of digital and physical channels working together to enable us all to have much more exciting event formats. There's been a lot of talk about things like unconferences, but when you bring something like an unconference into a corporate environment, you need the kind of digital hub to make it all run in the professional way that we all expect. And then the final area that I wanted to talk about is context, because context is a bit of a sort of abstract, it's a slightly strange one, but actually I think this is the area where there's most potential value. And that value lies in the data. And I thought what I'd do is start by talking about how we market events. Because I think typically events are marketed in a pretty one-size-fits-all way. Everybody tends to go through the same sort of invitation process, see the same sort of marketing. But actually, it doesn't need to be like that anymore. We can all, as event organizers, know a huge amount about potential delegates. So we can use things like past event data. We can know what events they've been to, what sessions they've attended, where they've spent their time. We can use cookies on the event website to see where they're going on the website, and again, this gives us an idea of what they're interested in. And finally, we can use the social media data that's available about them. We can combine this with perhaps other data that we might know about people within the organization to start to tailor both how we market to them, but also tailor the kind of events that we create for them as individuals. And then what about when they get to the event itself? Well, we can now know a lot about how they're spending time, and this is particularly relevant at exhibitions. So you can use things like RFID badges, smart badges. So you might have passive RFID, which means people have to check in at an exhibition stand, or they have to swipe to get more information about a topic. But the basic thing is, you know more about what they're doing. The other thing, of course, is you can use event apps. So you can use the data that comes back from the event apps, the data that comes back from smart devices to know more about how they've been spending their time. And the kind of thing that this allows you to do is to use things like relatedness engines. So that's a bit like the way online retailers use them. So you might be able to say to somebody, you've been to exhibition stand X and exhibition stand Y. That tells me that you'd also value visiting exhibition stand Z. And then post-event, you can take all of this data and again build much more detailed profiles of your delegates going forward. Now, I'm not suggesting, particularly on context, that you can do all of this stuff today. But this is coming. And the future of events and the future of building more contextual events very much lies in the data. So hopefully, using those 6 areas, you can see that there's a great way of looking at things from an audience point of view, looking at how you can use different technologies to build delegate value. And I think in conclusion, all I'd say is that if we use these technologies in the right way, in the future, delegates are going to get more out of our events, and businesses are going to get more out of delegates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jez. Excellent timing. Very good. Now, a couple of questions. There's a nice one. Interesting presentation by Jez. Good examples of event technology options.
That's not a question, is it?
No, it's a statement of qualification. Well done. I'm not sure I understand this one. Could you provide a breezily writing description of a 6-set DVP?
Yeah, happy to respond in any way that I can add value to your delegate experience. So just get in touch.
And using which digital tools in the digital hubs?
Oh, I think that the idea in terms of creating a digital hub, that really is as simple as a piece of app-based activity. So it's allowing your delegates to literally enter in the topics that they want to collaborate on, to say which topic groups they want to join. So it's fairly simple stuff, but the point is, as the event organizer, that's all coming back to you so you can respond to it and change the physical event accordingly.
Okay, one last question. Webcasts. You didn't talk about webcasts at all. You know, virtual events. Presumably they're the future, aren't they?
I think that's a really interesting area, and I think that's a sort of case in point that loads of people at the moment are talking about virtual events, loads of people are talking about hybrid events. And when they talk about it, they by and large talk about it in terms of a logistical and a travel saving. And actually, we believe that's exactly the wrong way to come at it. Yes, hybrid is brilliant because it can bring more people together and it can save money in that way. But actually, you need to come at it from the delegate value experience. And I think all too often, because those audiences are remote, they don't get the attention. You know, people talk about secondary audiences. Well, you'd never do that with a live audience. So taking an approach like this, you can think about your audience, the audience is in different locations, think about the type of experience that they need to have, and then you can choose the technology that's right for them. Because the hybrid and virtual conferencing technology is fantastic, it all exists, but you have to start with the delegate value.
Okay. Jez Paxman, thank you very much.
Thank you.